in our area, going to be generated in our area that will be transmitted?
Well, as the map that Mr. Rumsey from the New York ISO demonstrated, the renewable energies that he was referencing are in upstate New York. And as he correctly pointed out, there is a bottleneck, a congestion point, which is prohibiting that energy, these large utility-sized wind farms that are already in operation, and new ones that will be built, from allowing their energy to be produced and distributed downstate. That's a very real thing. That's not something made up. That's true. In addition to that, there are efficient energy plants in upstate New York that are not operating at full capacity because their energy cannot come down here. So the concept behind the AC transmission upgrade proceeding is to find ways to unlock that potential that exists in upstate to benefit the people downstate.
Yes. Hi, my name is Hugo from Woodstock. I just want to commend the panel for doing such a good job. Your job is not easy. Real quick, I work with Clearwater and Rockwood to promote nice service home performance program. If you want to make an effective change, you need a baseline. Everybody needs to know how much energy you are consuming. I do have the information for nice service program. You may be eligible for a free home energy assessment. If that's something you can start doing right away if you have any kind of issue with energy. I'm over by the corner. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jack Shadden from MacBoard, and thank you for your presentation tonight. I thought it was open school night, so I brought my report card, and I'd gotten a 36, and that was pretty scary, but then I found out it's 36 from the top, which means it's, what is it, a 64, so it's only 1 point from passing. So I'm really bad at counting electrons, so I have a couple of questions. One is, what percentage of the electrons do we lose in the transmission versus if Central Hudson built solar panels in Kingston and had them installed locally? And the other question is, 2 years ago on Valentine's Day, Central Hudson had a present for us. They came and they took out our analog meter and put in a digital meter. And the installer told my wife that the meter was broken, but he didn't leave it behind like my mechanic does, so I don't have the meter. And lo and behold, our bills skyrocketed following that, anywhere from 50 to 100% over what they were previously. And I'm wondering, are we just outliers, or is the counting of electrons that unreliable? Or in other words, what's the standard error of measurement on counting electrons? If you could tell us what that is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let me talk first about the efficiency of the grid. There are system losses associated with the transmission and distribution system. We address those to the extent we can through things like voltage support, capacitors, the type of technology we use with regard to the conductors, but roughly about 4% system loss between generation and your home. So that's that one question.
Higher.
I've heard 30 to 40% of coal.
Well, again, I'm talking about the transmission of the system, right? There's an efficiency issue with regard to generation, right? And I'm talking about exactly. All right.
So the entire transmission from wherever,
Correct.
or back.
Right. So the second question with regard to the meters are all designed to ANSI standards, and they're tested to ANSI standards. There are situations where those meters malfunction and don't actually record as they should. And part of our process is to go and check meters, and we have to do these tests periodically. And that's probably what would happen on your house and stuff, is where we have to go through and do what we call a time test.
And what percent of the meters would that involve?
It depends on the failure rate. If we see an issue with regard to more meters not meeting the standard, we have to increase the rate at what we go out and sample.
If you get a complaint, would you go out?
Absolutely, right. So if you had an issue about the concern on the usage and stuff, we would go out and address the individual customer concern and look and actually do additional measurements to verify the meter operation.
But are the old analog meters more unreliable than new digital meters? And what percent of the old analog meters have to be replaced?
It varies based on manufacturer. There could be certain specific manufacturer lots of meters where there could become issues. and they need to be on a more proactive replacement program.
Yeah, and under state requirements, Central Hudson has to randomly test meters and replace them each year. About 4% per year are randomly tested and replaced. That's under state requirements to ensure that the meters are all operating and recording properly. Thank you.
Yes, I wonder if you could just talk about the economics of this, the costs of the transmission upgrades. They're going to be paid for by the ratepayers, I understand. How that's going to affect ratepayers, and these improvements in transmission are supposed to bring the cost down? Are we actually going to see a drop in energy bills? Would you actually sign a statement saying that that is going to happen? Because that would be really remarkable. Talk about the economics.
So Jen, the specific project, again, there were 3 projects that would already have been kind of identified as a need with regard to the Indian Point retirement. So let me talk about the Edict to Pleasant Valley project that the Transco is proposing. That's roughly a $900 million project. When you look at that, what is that a rate impact on an annual basis? Let's call it $1 billion for rounding. It's roughly 20%, so $200 million is what is required to basically recover the capital, pay for the O&M on the line, et cetera, et cetera. Again, when you look at the numbers that I put up there, the savings, $176 million of energy savings, anywhere between $50 and $200 million of capacity savings annually. So let's say we take 100 million, so that's $276 million of savings. The negation of the capacity zone impacts in this zone alone could be $55 million. So, we're looking at numbers that could potentially be, north of $300 million of annual savings with costs of $200 million. And the way the Transco proposal is looking is that all these costs aren't being borne by Central Hudson ratepayers. They're being spread throughout the state. There are costs for these proposals that would be spread upstate to upstate customers, because there are some benefits for upstate as well as all the way to New York City and Long Island.
And John is actually, John, that's a great explanation. One of the things that the Public Service Commission is going to look at is the cost. We're going to balance the cost with the benefits. And we're going to look at that specifically with each of the projects, each of the proposals, to make sure that the ratepayers get the biggest bang for the buck.
Susan. Hi, co-conspirator. Susan Zimmer from New Paltz. First, just a quick statement. Cole and I have had the opportunity to be at a couple of events that the governor has done on this New York Rising program. And when microgrids was brought up, microgrids is very, very, very high on the priority list for the governor. And there's a number of towns and also the county looking at actually creating microgrids within our individual communities. So that is being worked on right now and is being taken seriously by many, many of the towns in Ulster County. And so that is really exciting. But my question, we have a situation in New Paltz, we have our landfill, we have this opportunity to do like a major solar farm at our landfill and create energy, try to do some kind of municipal energy thing. But we're stymied by the fact that the cost that Central Hudson is charging to us, and I'm not an expert, so I hope I'm getting this right, but the cost to get the power from the landfill through some kind of line to get it to the grid makes it cost prohibitive from us to even consider doing something like this. So how do we sort of get around where we have municipal property, the opportunity to do something, the will of a community to do it, but actually you guys are standing in our way?
Yeah, and I don't want to kind of punt this, but ultimately the policies in terms of how solar is connected and how what the payments are made for connection of solar are through PSC, right? That's through public service law. So we are following public service law with regard to how we interconnect and how we do a household installation is tied to public service law in terms of what we can charge. And same thing with regard to these installations that are larger. If there are significant upgrades to the system that need to be made in order for this interconnection to occur, the developer has to pay for those interconnects. And again, this is something that's a policy driven, so, I don't want to punt this, but that's the reality.
Now, I might not be stating fact, but I think, and I'll ask Mana, Jen, all these people, when Fortis took over Central Hudson, wasn't there a commitment that they were going to have to, they were going to invest a bunch of money into doing solar and making solar a bigger part of their portfolio and doing upgrades for solar?
No, the requirement was that we would invest capital without a current return. So over the next 2 years, there's a rate freeze in place where we are investing north of $230 million in the system with no return on that. So that was Fortis's commitment to, and there's some other tangible benefits that are part of the deal. But to say that, again, we would be able to do something that's not outside of the public service law with regard to these interconnects, that I don't think that was ever a specific commitment.
Susan, it's only a 2-year, no return. After that, bang, it's going into the rates, trust me.
I just want to know how we can try to do something where we can get the solar from, we have all this land, we want to do it, we're trying to do it, we can't because we can't get it.
Well, you have an absolute right to interconnect. The question is cost.
Right. The question is who bears the cost, and if it's absorbed by the utility, then it's spread out to all customers. So the current thinking is that it's benefiting this developer or this municipality, so the cost should be associated with.
Well, not, I mean, if
that
we're just putting, that if we said to you, we'll take the energy we create, we'll just put it into the grid to give you more energy created by solar, and we'll share it with everybody, what's the problem?
There is no problem. That's fine.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Dennis?
Thank you, Supervisor. I hope you would indulge me. I have a series of questions. I hope you folks will indulge me as well. My name is Dennis Doyle. I'm the Planning Director for Ulster County. I would like to say that the department has filed for party status with respect to the case for Boundless because it is on our side of the river. And I think it would be helpful, quite frankly, Mr. Den, if you would explain the party status filing requirements for the Public Service Commission. The county attorney has sent letters to all the supervisors in the communities that are affected, as well as the other communities, informing them of the ability to file for party status. So I think that would be helpful. And the folks here that may be affected by the Boundless proposal or the other proposals on the table should consider filing for party status. So the first thing is I think it would be beneficial if we had an explanation. The second thing is I'm a little confused about the difference between the capacity issues or the wheeling capacity issues with respect to the transmission line. And the requirement that the Public Service Commission or the ISO has seemed to set with respect to the requirement to buy capacity within the rate, within the zone. And understanding that, I think, illuminating that the difference between those would be helpful. If we solve the transmission line capacity issue, do we effectively solve the need to buy capacity within the zone? Does the zone go away or does it still exist?
Well, I'd like to take the first one, Paul, and then I'll give you the second one. Judge Preston, the administrative law judge, one of the administrative law judges who's overseeing this proceeding, issued a notice a couple of months ago which laid out the particulars of exactly what was required to, now again, anyone can become a party, right? What I think you're specifically referencing is, well, who can receive intervenor funding? And to date, the Public Service Commission has awarded $265,000 to a number of parties in the proceeding who have requested intervenor funding. By the way, the intervenor funding is being provided by the 4 developers who are participating in the proceeding. That's part of the requirement, and that enables full and complete participation on the part of the public. The things that the judges, and I'll just quickly summarize what the judge is looking for. But it's it's a party, a group, a community, not an individual, who can assist in developing the record. You know, what is it that you want to bring to the table? These are all important things. I'd be happy to, in fact, this information is on the line, on the website. I'd be happy to send it to you so you can have a full and complete listing. But really, it's more a focus of what is it that you want to look at? What are the issues that you want to raise? How do you propose raising it? What are the expenses? You know, one of the things that we want to ensure is that the money is spent wisely and it's not wasted. So oftentimes an intervener would request money for an attorney or for an engineer to help in their analysis. Of
Public outreach?
Sometimes, public outreach, not so much, to be honest with you. But what's more important is that the resources are marshaled in a way that, we don't have one town getting money for an engineer and the next neighboring town getting money for an engineer. Far better for all the towns to join forces and make a combined request. That would be a very, very efficient use of these resources.
Can I follow up with that question? I'm sorry, Supervisor. Would you see the second round when we move to Phase B, when there's actually gone through the screening process and we choose a preferred alternative, would there be a second round of intervening funding available?
The judge in the case has specifically said that there's about $2 million left in the pool, and that money is going to be made available as we go forward.
Okay. Now, with regard to the question of the zone, to me, I think it's critical. Because if we're going to solve the transmission line issue or the capacity issue of the transmission line, we still have to build capacity within the zone. I think it raises some additional issues.
Right. No, and I tried to make that clear in the presentation that by having the transmission, that basically alleviates this issue with regard to what Tom was talking about, this bottleneck, and therefore would mitigate the need for the zone. Now, the zone may exist, but the prices would be the same as the rest of the state.
Okay. If I may, the other thing I would like to suggest to Boundless, I know they're here tonight, it would be nice to have you back, make a presentation to this side of the river in terms of what your proposal is. I think that would be most helpful to have this side of the river understand what your proposal is. So I would invite you, or at least the local power folks, to invite them back to make that presentation. Last but not least, I wanted to thank the supervisor for his indulgence and letting me ask a series of questions. Thanks again.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Vanderlee. I'm from across the river. I'm from the town of Clinton. I live right in the bottleneck. I heard a very interesting comment from the gentleman from John Maserjian there. So I have a question. Okay, so my property is 0.9 acres. It's a triangle. The hypotenuse is the power line that runs through the town of Clinton, the eastern one. Are you saying you will not take my house?
That is correct. From the standpoint that there is existing rights of way, no new property is needed for the lines that are being proposed by the New York Transco.
So I heard this from you. Now, would any of the other gentlemen care to comment on that?
We haven't seen their plan yet, so we can't comment. That's not what we originally heard with the rewording, so.
Okay.
What he's not said is the imprint that's currently within the right-of-way.
Yes.
If your grandfather.
Okay, so he's not saying we're not staying within the imprint, which is what the governor's policy suggests in terms of the accelerated procedures within 10 months to license a line, but he's committing to staying within the right-of-way.
Okay.
That's what I hear.
Well, Dan, let me clarify that. I think we're evaluating all the alternatives. There are, again, it's just a matter of additional cost. To stay within the footprint that the governor is envisioning with regard to height of structures and the width of structures, that all can be engineered. There's even alternatives to consider as undergrounding. If the policy suggests that undergrounding is the best alternative, the Transco project could be undergrounded as well. Again, we don't think from a true benefit standpoint it makes sense, but again, if that's what the desire is and that's what will happen through the proceeding, that may be an end result.
It's very important, and we've had this discussion in Clinton. It's very important for the public to understand that the initial proposals that have been put forth by the 4 developers are simply concepts. There are no, they haven't gotten into the place where they're really narrowing and making sure, does it go left, does it go right? I mean, it's very encouraging to hear that Transco and Boundless, everybody's working hard. They know what the commission is looking for, but it's important for the public to be reassured at this point in the process that, we're still working on these details. Nothing has been decided. No project has been selected. We are early in the process.
Okay, so you kind of give them maybe answer, and that gentleman gives me a direct answer. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm just sharing from the global perspective, and again, it's heartening to hear Paul's comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yes,
Hello, I'm Jessica from Citizens for Local Power. I just wanted to ask specifically about the impact on renewable energy for the proposals that were made. I heard from Transco that there would be these upgrades that make renewables more possible. I didn't hear that from Boundless Energy. I don't know if there is a difference, if you could speak to that specifically. And then I had a second part to my question, which was like, what would you do to ramp up renewables and efficiency in New York State? How would you change things differently? You know, like sky's the limit. What would you do?
I can address those. First, we think that coming on the West Bank is better for renewables because there's more room over here. You've got some real possibilities for both wind and solar. So for us to be over here increases the capacity, so there's something to hook into. And that gives you a little more potential for the renewables. On the policy side, others can talk about that. To me, a lot of the work can be done legally. If you can sell all your power, I have a license now to sell into the grid at 6 cents because I got in with my little hydroelectric plant. And as much as I can produce, I can sell in. But if you do that, you can only sell as much as you use. So if you had the ability to sell in excess of your own use, it would make sense to build bigger systems, put more solar. Solar's coming down in price. It's getting better all the time. You know, wind is already competitive. Renewables could compete today if they could have storage. Storage is the problem because you can't get around the clock power and the fossil fuels can produce the power all around. But that's going to be fixed. I mean, storage is coming and renewables are getting cheaper, especially solar. So as we increase our ability, we also need to increase the policy and the laws that govern it to favor more of the production of renewable power at the organic level. I think that's going to make the largest change. New York is a little bit, you know, we give good lip service, but we really haven't caught up with our policy yet. And the U.S. solar stuff, hell, that stuff is down to, you know, it's getting competitive now. It's like 3 cents now for the install cost. So it's just getting it into the grid and getting a good way of getting paid so that a homeowner can afford to make an investment. There are new systems that you know of where the solar producers are paying for it up front, and then in 10 years you own the system. That's being very successful. In fact, solar's going faster than anything else. They're building more solar than anything else. But wind has already had its heyday because of the production tax credit for the moment. And wind needs to be big to be effective. You know, it's hard to get a small wind, although we've got some good little wind turbines now, but the large wind, again, you need transmission to move it from where the places you can build large. It's a scale problem. The more scale, the more effective it is. You can get wind down at 3 cents, 4 cents, because you're not paying for anything but the capital, really. The fuel is free. But they're big turbines. They got to be out there where you can move the power to where it gets to go. And all those things require the policy to catch up. And that's why the New York ISO is trying to do that. The ISO right now, there are 4 ways to get a tariff, a cost of service project. The first one is reliability. And that's the old-fashioned way, keep the lights on. They look 10 years out when they do that. The next thing to look at is cost, which they just talked about, which is the CARIS process, congestion and reliability impact study that you do. And the third way is the policy, and that's solar and wind, and they've gotten to that. And the last one is when you get close to 2 seams, there's a lot of problems. And so the utilities don't do a good job there. It's the other guy's problem. So FERC says, I'll give you a tariff if you'll fix these seam problems. Well, those are coming more and more understood by the utilities now, and they're starting to move in that direction. They need public pressure from people like yourself. And these microgrids he's talking about are a great idea because even though, and I worked a lot with microgrids, they give you some problems because they're small systems that need to be connected so they get the backup from the big heavy systems, but they can take a lot of load off. And these peaking problems, when you've got 40,000 megawatts needed at certain times, It's like building a church for Easter Sunday. You know what I'm talking about? So, that's expensive. So you need to take those peaks down. If you can, and they charge you a whole bunch for those peaking problems. So you hit the peak one time in the wrong time of the month, and they charge you for the whole month at that worst price. So we need ways, and that goes back to storage again. To me, storage is the panacea for renewables. That's where we need to go.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Al Rabasco, and I'm from Dutchess County. I am a family member of the Monster Power Line also. I have a question for the PSC and a question for Transco. I just want to...
Stand a little closer to the mic.
My question for the PSC is, just want to make sure I clarify this. The bottleneck from Leeds to Pleasant Valley has really nothing to, and the rate increase has nothing to do with the Indian Point issue or more power to New York City. It's two separate issues, correct?
That is correct. The Public Service Commission began to deal with the issue relating to the potential retirement of Indian Point through its October 2013 decisions, which Paul had referenced earlier. These were the projects in Staten Island, or 3 projects specifically. Those were the initial first steps to deal with, again, the potential loss of Indian Point. The AC alternating current transmission upgrade is a different project, and it's related specifically to the issues of congestion and the constraints that are here in the lower Hudson Valley.
Okay, thank you. And my question for Transco is, I've been to many of your meetings on our side of the river, and this is the first time tonight that I'm hearing that you can stay in the corridor, and you're sure of that. We still haven't seen your proposal. Are we going to see a proposal for an underground possibility and the cost on that? And what about the height requirement? Are you going to be able to, is your proposal going to stay within the height?
Yeah, I think, as Jim alluded to, right, this is very early in the process, right? And what was included in the Part A filings was very conceptual. And then, obviously, through the process, through what the governor announced in the State of the State, that there's new information that needs to be considered. And part of that will be assessing and refining the design alternatives. So a proposal that could come out of this would be, again, I think the recognition is that there's a way to keep it in the existing right-of-way. The second piece is, can we now keep it at the same height of the existing structures? And the third would be, yeah, sure, we will develop an underground cost. And again, then based on an evaluation process that the PSC will do through the proceeding, we'll determine what makes the best sense in terms of a project. And whether it's a Transco project, a Boundless project, an Xterra project, will be what gets ultimately decided.
Will you guys have a proposal by the February 20th? Will you have something for then or not?
Again, I think the February 20th date is really going to be an opportunity for us to hear from the commission what they're thinking. And that will then give us an opportunity to reassess what we will do moving forward with the Part A filing ultimately, and then the Part B filing.
Okay, thank you.
Paul is correct. That's exactly what's going to happen on the 20th.
Yes, sir.
I'm Rod Lenfest. I'm president of Boundless Energy Northeast. I promise to take not more than 60 seconds. John Dobson, my good friend, covered an awful lot of material very well and very rapidly. So rapidly, I'm not sure I understood all of it. But what I'd like to do is promise you 3 things. Number 1, I'm going to leave a stack of cards here. If you leave here tonight and have questions that are unanswered, please call me or please let me know in one of 3 ways. Either give me a call, or we've got www.leadspathwest.com, which is our website, or we're also on Facebook, Leads Path West. So please let us know. Number 2, we will come back if that is desired, and please let us know that. Number 3, the other thing that we could do is actually do something online, an interactive session. I don't know how many of you are computer friendly or not, but if you are, that's another possibility. We'll be happy to do that as well. But don't, under any circumstances, let your questions go unaddressed. We believe, and we believe you will believe, if you look into it deeply enough, that by any objective standard, we have the best project proposed for transmission in terms of cost, in terms of technology, in terms of efficiency, all of the above, and including not having a social cost associated with this by building additional towers or stretching additional lines above ground. So let us hear from you, please. Thank you for all for being here.
Thank you, sir. Now comes that time.
One more?
Oh, one more. Now, are we going to charge you per word, or?
I promise this will be very,
Very quick.
Okay, for those of you who want this information, first of all, we thank you, those of us from Dutchess County, for allowing us to come to your meeting. Those of you who are in the process of seeking party status or who already have party status, I think it's important you know that there is a coalition that is developing between Columbia County and Dutchess County towns, and we welcome and want Ulster County to be a part of that. This is how you share on legal fees, engineering fees, outreach fees with those intervenor dollars. Scenic Hudson is sort of coordinating that, and I'll be happy to help you figure out who to get in touch with. On a citizen basis, I am a concerned citizen. We started No Monster Power Lines on October 28th, which was when we heard about this for the first time. It is existing right now as a Facebook page and a website. So it's nomonsterpowerlines.com or No Monster Power Lines on Facebook. We try to put everybody's information, all of the towns, all of the email addresses of how to reach out to the PSC, all of the companies involved, how to write your comments, how to lodge your statements and your feelings about this project. All of that information is available to you on No Monster Power Lines, and we'll be happy to share your information through that as well, so that everybody can learn about it. It's a part of the outreach, and it's just the beginning. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I'm curious to know whether or not the PSC regulates the profit that Tesco can make on such a project. Presumably, they don't do it at cost.
As has been discussed, the costs will be reviewed as part of the proceeding. So, you know, how...
Well, you regulate the amount of profit that Central Hudson can make selling electricity.
You're confusing, you know, the Public Service Commission sets the rates for the individual utilities,
Yes.
right? It is going to be looking at the costs and expenses related to this particular proceeding. So as part of the proceeding, these things will be examined.
Okay, so my question then for Fortis is, we tonight have one proposal approximately 300 million and one at approximately $1 billion. What do you anticipate your cost? I mean, how much of that is, $1 billion is going to be what a normal business would call a profit or a return on your investment for doing the project?
Well, there's two things, right? First is understanding the two projects and whether they're equivalent, right? And that's the object of the PSC, right? Because they need to assess, actually the NISO and the PSC, to determine whether these two projects address the concerns and the issues that have been identified. Secondarily will be, as Jim said, you know, we will provide the cost and ultimately what we would want from a return standpoint. And they will be evaluating the returns and the expenses to make sure they're reasonable.
What percentage do you normally want as return on a project like this?
I think, it depends. I mean, right now the returns are tied to economic factors such as the cost of capital, borrowings, you know, costs are probably in the range of, you know, low 9%.
9?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all our panelists for being here tonight. I'd also like to thank the town of Marshalltown for letting us use this building. Also, Citizens for Local Power has really been doing a tremendous amount of work to benefit the community, and they really worked hard on this, and I congratulate Jen and the members. It is my sincere hope that we have more informational meetings. We need to keep the public involved, and so I thank you all for coming, and please enjoy the refreshments.
Thank you.